And we have another item that came from the yard sale giveaway event. I'm always attracted to stuff in wooden boxes, though this box is pretty beat. Leather strap has failed. There's this nice tag here on the side. They're raised letters. Remove this plate and renew dry cells every 6 months, or when instrument lacks sensitivity, insert new cells so that center terminals of cell make contact with this plate. That's interesting. There's a tag here that looks to be probably in Spanish. Nombre, inventario, operación. I mean, I'm sure my grammar there, or my speaking is horrific, but definitely not, in my mind, English. I don't know what language it potentially is. Oh, wow, that's beat. Directions for operating Leeds and Northrup Type S test set number 5300. Resistance measurements. Murray loop test. Looks like it's a wine bridge, if I can say it here correctly. Location, application, quad cables. 3 Varley method. Or 3 Varley method, sorry. Varley loop test. To use outside battery, to use outside galvanometer. To use rheostat resistance box. Printed in USA. If there was a date on it, it's long gone down here. This card's pretty rough. Let's take a look at what we've got inside. Wow, these knife switches are really interesting. I don't think I've encountered that before on a piece of test gear. I've got it upside down here. That's just kind of the way it ended up. 1X, or X1 and X2. Leeds and Northrup Company, made in USA. Is this a switch? Seems to be some kind of a rotary switch. In, BA, out. Switches. That switch is very sticky. These obviously need to be cleaned. I don't know that I'll ever attempt to bring this back into service. Battery plus, BA minus, CR, whatever that would have been. These terminals are, these up here are well frozen on. This has definitely had water damage. It's had, you could tell by the card it's had water infiltration. Well, as we always do, let's see if I can take a peek inside. Let's see what magic we might find. Yeah, the wooden case is the wood has swelled over the years and has cracked. The seams are kind of coming apart, although they're just very cheap. The wood box is very cheaply made. It's not nearly as beautiful as some of the instruments from the 20s and 30s, where the cabinet maker, I think, put as much work into it as the instrument maker did. Well, we have lifted it out. Let me set the box aside, if I can juggle this around. Wow, the corrosion's sad, but boy, those switches are impressive. Quick look, the design of these 4 switches seems to be the same. The patterning of the metal, the contacts are sliding on. They are triple wipes, so there's 3 contacts in each of the bridges here, so it is a triple wipe. Probably mechanically a pretty reliable switch. Looks to me like these are probably all coils they're selecting in and out. We've seen this before in another instrument where it confused me as to what it is. A galvanometer, I guess, is what it actually is called. Just not something I'm familiar with. So this actually is a switch, even though it rotated. That oh, again, it's like the switch was on the other unit, where it can be a temporary contact, or you can rotate it, so it's a permanent contact. So it's a rotate on or temporary push. Kind of a neat little design. Little carbon film resistor. There's a missing connector here. Missing post. It's highly corroded inside. Rusty. I don't know. It's an interesting piece of gear. There's so much rust and corrosion. The washer's underneath. The binding post. Well, that one broke loose. The brass is heavily aged. This would take a lot of work to bring this back. It's one of those things I may hold on to with the thought of doing it someday, and I may let it move on. We've got a ham fest coming up in a couple of weeks up north of where I live. It's a very small one. It's just in a parking lot of a building up there. It's a yearly event, and a friend of mine's talking about taking stuff up to sell, and I might let this go for a few bucks. But still, it was a fun look. I've really got to research more how these work. It's amazing, no matter how much stuff you learn, there's always something new to learn, something new to explore. So these are set up in decades. It's labeled here ones, tens, hundreds, and thousands. Makes me wonder if that's resistance. If those are like precision wire round resistors, that would be interesting. Or I don't know. It's interesting that the scale runs 1 to 9, 0, 1 to 9. The continuous, is it 2 decades? I mean, it's the ones. I find the numbering on them quite interesting. It's, let's see, there's 1 0 position, and the other 0 position is going to be 180 degrees around. So it really is just 1 to 10 on a 20. It's an interesting switch. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It should be back to 0, 1. What's interesting, it's a 20 position switch, but it's used for 10 positions. I guess just to make it easier to rotate, maybe towards the direction of the next value you need. I'm assuming I'll find these wired in series to here. So let's see, this one to this one, that one underneath, that one to this one. There's the output of that one, I'm assuming, and that's going to be the output of that one. And we've got this large multiplier. Maybe it's time to put a ohm meter on here, huh? Wonderful, dropped a pair of glasses. Put an ohm meter on here and see what this looks like electrically. I'm sure you can't see the meter in camera frame. It's my Rigol 305080 up there. Thrown in the Kelvin probes. Ohms, 4-wire. It's nulled well. It looks to me like it runs from here here, assuming it's making contact. It's having a hard time making good contact. Scrape a little of the corrosion away here. With the lead, hopefully something to bite into. I may have to take a bit of maybe sandpaper to that to polish that up. And that's on the brass there. Oh, that didn't work so well, did it? Let me find the zeros for all of these. And it's measuring 0.02 ohms. This is the ones. 1 ohm, 2 ohms, 3 ohms, 4 ohms. It's pretty precise. It's within... that's kind of an interesting find. So it's 0.02 ohms nominal here, baseline. And that's 1.01, so it's within 10 milliohms. That's actually pretty impressive for what this is. There's 0.501 or 5.01 ohms, 6.01, 7.01 ohms, 8.01, 9.01, and back to 0. This just may have found a new purpose in life with me. That jumps straight to 100 ohms dead on. This is the 10 ohm range. This switch is not happy. Oh, okay, so there's 10 ohms. Again, oh, it's reading mega ohms, sorry. This switch needs to be cleaned at a minimum. Yeah, that switch is unhappy. You bring it back down to 0. This is the 100 ohms. That's 100 ohms dead on. 200 dead on. 300. Wow, this is really surprisingly accurate. It's within 0.01 ohms. It's it's consistently 0.02 essentially. Ohms offset from 0, which was the baseline when I was at 0 ohms on it. So 700s, 800s a little bit off. 900s a little bit off. We're back to 0. 1K dead on. Wow. I may repurpose this as a pretty high precision resistor substitution or standard box. That's at 9K ohm. That should be 9.9K. 9, and there's 9.909, and if this switch was working, it's gone open, open, open. The question is whether this is just the contacts being dirty or something horrible's happened, and since it's on every one of the switch positions around to that one, it looks like the straight through and the 10 ohm position work and everything else isn't open. That's really interesting. Let me bring it back around to nominal. And actually see how This appears to be wired in. It appears to come to right there. Looking at the other wiring inside. That should pass through all 5 of the switches. Get him back on there. So we're at 0.01 ohms, 0.02. There's the 1 ohm again is there. What does the multiplier do? Anything? I'm not seeing it do anything. It's got actually got a couple of different potential outputs. Interesting find. I'll have to muck around with the 10 ohm range, see if I can determine what's wrong with it. The contacts don't look that dirty. They don't seem to be bent. They are greased. Well, if I decide to do something more with this, I will do another video. Let you know what I decide to do with it. I'm really tempted to keep it for the 4 resistance steps here, just because it seems to step so beautifully, ohm to ohm to ohm. Pretty precise, so very nice. This is labeled VR and R. So it's got to be wing bridge again for setting a very precise resistance, and then wherever the DUT terminals are, which almost have to be these, yeah, it's got to be these 2 terminals. It must be for just balancing, you know, comparing the 2 resistances and getting a 0 on the meter. It means you have an exact resistance match. That's pretty cool. I don't know. Yeah, these knife switches may have to do with. They do have to do with this range extender here. Well, hope you enjoyed this. If I do something with it in the future, I'll let you know. We'll talk later. Bye. Actually, because I found this kind of interesting, I'll throw in a bit more video here. I decided to pull one of the knobs off the switches here, and lo and behold, beneath the knob shaft there's a hole with a spring in it and the ball bearing, and the ball bearing is riding in the slots in the back of the switch here to create the detents for the switch. I'd kind of wondered where the detents lived. I didn't see it on there, obviously. It's just an interesting way to do it. You know, they've actually used this panel to actually create part of the switch with the ball bearing there that then creates the. It's an interesting integration between the the faceplate itself and the switches. You know, all designed to be a single unit. So I found that interesting. Thought I'd add it in. Actually, I'm back again. One more interesting thing. This may have been obvious to some of you. It wasn't to me at first. This plate is meant to be removed. And the batteries going through the hole there. The center terminal of the cell, the positive terminal, makes contact onto here. Somebody's actually scraped there. And on this side, the screw runs through. It's a longer screw. Runs through to a metal connection inside to actually finish the connection with the battery. It's an interesting design. What brought that to attention is when I noticed the battery box here. I could see the spring down in there, It has had batteries leak, it looks like, down inside of there. I don't know if that just means that it takes 2 or 3 D cells would be enough to power it. That could well be, but I found that interesting. I hope maybe you did too.